Hey the internet, this is Lock. We're going to have a nice chat about MMOs, but first I'm going to nitpick an upcoming game to provide some context and act all aloof and British. The Witcher 3 is due out very soon, next month. Chances are it's going to make a pretty big splash in the old RPG pool, so I imagine we'll all be playing it and comparing our beards that are grown in real time. Well, that may seem like a fluff addition to draw attention to the shiny graphics, as these things always are. It's a feature that's requested so often on forums that I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing the reaction to it, and I hope it becomes a mainstay for the RPG genre. One immediate thing about The Witcher 3 that always grabs me when I see it is that the role you're playing is very narrowly defined. If we consider Witcher to be our class and Geralt to be our character, while we can affect the world and the outcomes of certain events to a certain degree, the way we go about that and the way that the world views us and people within the world view us are pretty concrete. I recall thinking this felt a little restrictive in some other RPGs like Shadow of Mordor or Assassin's Creed, you know, being the player on the good ship plot, you know, bound to our destiny with no choice of port to stop along the way, if you really want to torture the metaphor. I'm being a little bit unfair to make our point, but if our destiny is set so immovably, why make us play such a specific character to go along with that? If you want us to play such a specific character, shouldn't it be the world that we live in that lets us leave our mark? Ultimately, if you want to railroad us, if you want to railroad the player, why bother making an open world game at all? I know that part of this is down to budgeting, and frankly, you know, the type of games that tend to sell well, the things that we as players spend money on do this. And call me a purist, call me a snob, but I look back at the RPGs I played growing up and I really notice one important difference, which is these games, the games that are made like this, aren't really about the players anymore, they're about the authors. Which, you know, it's fine really. Games can tell wonderful stories in ways other mediums can't, and some games like Telltale's Walking Dead or Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, they've really taken this idea to the next level. One thing that Skyrim got really right, and a major reason for its huge success, I think, was it made you feel like you were pulling levers in a larger machine rather than being railroaded, even with the grand Chosen One narrative still in place. I'm not saying Skyrim's a better game than any other I've mentioned, but when considering storytelling from an open world RPG perspective, the pieces came together very nicely, in the same way as The Walking Dead and Brothers, in the form followed the function. Now, I am a bit of a utilitarian when it comes to design. I believe that's how you get the best user experience, and that's not happening. It's not the case for the modern RPG heavyweights. Now, I've got my fingers crossed for The Witcher 3. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope that it's great. I hope it's a great game, and I think the developers, CD Projekt Red, have actually tried to avoid this trap from what I've seen. And I think really it was a weird trap to ever fall into for the genre. If you told me at the turn of this century we call the 21st, the successors of Baldur's Gate 2 and Planescape Torment would be in many ways indistinguishable from Grand Theft Auto, I don't know, what would I have done? I would have marveled at your time-traveling device and probably said something sarcastic, because that's what 15-year-olds are for. And all along this time, the MMORPG The MMORPG, we got there in the end. We're talking about MMOs. It's been going down a similar track. It's now in a similar situation where the reasons for moving in certain directions may have been good. They may have been the right choices to make at the time. But as far as the implementation of character and story goes, we're at a point now where sometimes it looks like these systems were made for other games entirely. Star Wars: The Old Republic, one of my old school whipping boys, for example. It's a game that made a great spectacle of its fully voiced stories, BioWare brand, moral choice, and they were good. Some of the stories and the characters were very good. I think some of the characters especially are the best that we've seen in an MMO to date. But they were implemented in such a way that they actually detracted from the core experience of the game, which then relegated really the best part of the game to essentially window dressing in the worst way. It was a shame. Another game that suffers from this, and another game that I tend to have a lot of negative things to say about, is The Elder Scrolls Online. They had a goal to create a world that felt like it changed dynamically with players' actions as you got involved, with quests as you enforced your will upon the world. The way that phasing is used, though, to segregate players and then throw them together, it really has the opposite effect to me. It's a very jarring experience sometimes. As you progress through these chains at different rates and different speeds, and sometimes you end up in a room in a boss battle that's meant to be this this ghost that's thousands. It's always a ghost in ESO as well, and it's thousands of years old, and you have to fight it to stop the ancient evil devouring the world, and there's already 6 or 7 other players there, and its health's at 10%, and if you're lucky you can get a shot in before it goes down and get your quest completion. Again, it's the idea is fair enough. I understand how they came to that conclusion, but the implementation takes away from the core game. Let's have another. Let's go three examples. Personal story in Guild Wars 2. It felt like a really odd decision in an RPG. While at the beginning you're free to choose your race, you're free to choose your class, you're even free to choose several things about the background of your character that could potentially have really important things to say about your character, about the way that you view the world, but that's just not present later down the line because of the way that the story is constructed. It means that any sense of choice beyond that is really stifled, and it's an instance of just pure, you're railroaded, you're on a lawful good path as well, and we're not even the protagonist by the end of it because of the way that it's being implemented into the MMO medium. And all of these rather strange quirks and weird decisions are the product, in my opinion, of trying to force the landscape to fit the map rather than the other way around. And the one thing they all have in common is that they get in the way of people playing together. And in my mind, surely they should have been scrapped for that alone. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you think? Is there an MMO that gets it right? Is it possible to put a really dense, compelling narrative into an MMO that feels like we're part of it? Do you play MMOs for the solo RPG experience? If so, do you also use a surfboard for transport? I'd be very interested to know. So yeah, hit like if you think this is a discussion worth having. If you agree or disagree, I'm sure if you've made it to this point, you found it at least a little bit interesting. Subscribe for all manner of stuff and things from wonderful people, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye!